story, of course, that we're following today is the government shutdown. So let's get into this. The government has of course, reopened. So just to kind of walk you through some of the latest updates on this, federal workers have been told that they do need to show up at work today. President Trump signed a funding bill on Wednesday night, ended the nation's longest government shutdown. The tally there, 43 days the government was shut down, left thousands of federal workers without pay, stranded travelers at the airport, and sent long lines to food banks as well. Those are the things that we have seen, that we saw, I guess we should say, throughout those 43 days. So it also deepened partisan rifts in Washington as the president canceled projects and attempted to dismiss federal workers in order to pressure Democrats. The president blamed Democrats for the standoff and just urged voters against backing the party in the upcoming elections. Here's a little bit more on that. He signed the bill hours after the House approved the measure on a near party line vote. So we're talking 222 to 209 voting for this and against. The Senate approved the measure earlier this week. Democrats pushed to extend an expiring tax credit that lowers the cost of health care coverage under the Affordable Care Act. And then they rejected the short-term spending bill through this provision that left out of the provision. But Republicans argued the issue should be debated separately. So both sides still very much at odds when it comes to the shutdown here. So let's take a look right now at the airport, because again, that has just been one of the areas where we've seen so much disruption. Folks stranded, flights canceled, tons of delays at our airport here in Atlanta, of course, around the country as well. There is a little bit of good news for travelers, though. That is, we're learning that ahead of the holiday season, these flight cuts will stay for right now at 6%. That's according to the FAA. But the plan had been to increase those to 8% today and then up to 10% this weekend if the government had not reopened. So again, things for now will stay at 6%. But let's take a look at what we're seeing here at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport as far as those delays and cancellations go. So the very latest numbers from FlightAware.com are showing about 39 total delays at Hartsfield right now. Total cancellations for today looking like 85. But if this is something that you've been following, then you know that these numbers are certainly down from what we've been seeing throughout the shutdown. But now that things are back open, things getting slowly by slowly just a little bit better. But we're actually going to check in soon with one of our Fox reporters live in New York with just a deeper dive into what we're seeing at airports across the country and when things can hopefully get back to normal. And speaking of that, we're getting some reaction and just some statements from different airlines. But want to read you what Delta is saying about things opening back up and hopefully getting back on the right track. This is with a statement that they released. It says Delta appreciates the work of the U.S. Congress to reopen the federal government. We're extremely grateful to all those federal workers, including air traffic controllers and officers with the TSA and Customs and Border Protection, who worked without a paycheck for more than 40 days to keep our skies safe and secure. It goes on to say we look forward to bringing our operation back to full capacity over the next few days and delivering a premium experience our customers expect as we look ahead to the holiday season, end quote. Again, that's the statement that we're getting from Delta Airlines as far as the government reopening and things hopefully on their way to getting back to normal at airports around the country. But, you know, something else that we saw through all of this are just lots of questions from those who receive SNAP benefits, you know, when that money would be dropped into their accounts, when they would have access to be able to use that. So here's what we know about it right now. Many families delayed, reduced benefits, but new legislation does fund SNAP through the rest of the budget year. So that's really good news for millions of Americans and millions of Georgians here as well. USDA says that most states could see those payments restored within 24 hours of the government reopening. So they should start to see that money trickle in very soon. But they're saying the timing of that will vary state by state. So last we checked with Georgia, there's not a definitive day or time that all of those benefits should be restored. But of course, you can count on us to stay on top of that and to let you know the very latest on what they have to say in news for those SNAP recipients here in Georgia. So food, though, not really the only insecurity that so many experienced all the time. And of course, during this government shutdown as well. Also, diapers, baby supplies. Those are things that are very, very expensive. And so for so many families, it felt out of their reach. They weren't sure how they would afford those things. And that's where organizations like Helping Mamas has really come into play and has seen such an increased need from the community as well. So this morning we have our Eli Jordan, who's joining us live in Norcross with more on what they have going on out there and just the great ways they're able to help so many that need that help. Eli, good morning. Okay, Eli, looks like something is going wrong right there. We can't hear you, but we see you. So if we're able to get things back up and running, then we'll check in with Eli here again in just a little bit. But here's something I think we do have ready to go for you. We're going to stay on this topic of the government shutdown. So some of the news that's coming out of the government reopening is a lot of folks are weighing in on what that's done to the economy and what we can expect moving forward. The markets, as we'll say. So senior managing partner of Eli Capital, we have Gerson Gibbs, who's joining us to talk about the markets after the shutdown. So, Gerson, if you can hear me, good morning to you, and thank you so much for being on with us.
Good morning. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. Okay, so things are improving, I guess we should say, as far as at least getting back running, the government's doors back open. But let's start with this. I mean, what's your first read? What are your initial thoughts now that how are the markets responding to this news?
Well, just yesterday we had record highs. I think the market rallied a bit in anticipation of the negotiation happening to actually have the government reopen. I think that the regulation was at a little bit of a standstill because of the government shutdown, and they're going to reopen that, and they're going to also start implementing new processes to get the numbers from the Jobs Acts and the CPIs because the Federal Reserve was impacted because of this shutdown.
Of course, and federal workers, impacted, of course, by this as well. Many furloughed, working without a paycheck, others expected to show up. So what sectors would you say stand to benefit the most in the near term now that the government is back open?
I believe every sector is going to benefit in some way, shape, or form because it's government and it impacts every business. And I think every sector is going to be impacted because of the data. We saw a couple of weeks ago that the Federal Reserve, they dropped interest rates, but it was kind of a blind move that was made because there was a lack of so much information. I think that the information itself would impact every sector and every business in some way, shape, or form.
What about residual risks investors should be aware of right now, from the shutdown? So, for instance, maybe backlogs, delays, regulatory reviews, anything that we should expect to see there?
Regulatory reviews are going to be huge. It was a bit of a pause on regulatory reviews for the last 43 days, as we know, because of the government shutdown. So there are going to be reviews on the activity that occurred within those periods. There's going to be reviews on activity that occurred prior to those periods that were supposed to be reviewed within those 43 days. So I think there's going to be a lot of regulatory backlog in some way, shape, or form.
So, Gerson, just for those everyday investors who are watching right now and have been following, what's been going on, what would be your advice for them in moving past the shutdown? Is it a good time to perhaps be more aggressive, or should they still be cautious? What would your advice be?
I think you should pay attention to the markets. Right. We don't truly know how this is going to impact the markets. We do know that in anticipation, the markets rally and we had all-time highs. However, we don't truly know the impact. We don't know if this is just a big bubble that's going to burst and, stocks are going to start tanking, or we don't know if stocks are going to continue to rally because of the closing of the government shutdown. So I believe the best thing to do, pay attention to your stocks a little more in detail than you usually do, because there's going to be a lot of changes within the next couple of days.
Now, do you expect us to see any changes, Gerson, when it comes to maybe shifting interest rates, inflation watching, that kind of thing? I mean, what's your takeaway from that?
I definitely think there's going to be changes because, again, we did not have the information at the last Fed meeting, which reduced interest rates. However, I believe that this new information and the jobs information, as well as the CPI, would lead to a potential additional cut in interest rates. So I do think that the information will cause a little bit of change in interest and inflation. It might be a little higher than we anticipated, but that's the reason the ending of the government shutdown is so important, because this information is critical for all businesses, especially for the Federal Reserve.
Of course. All right. Any final takeaways for us? I'm sure that this is, of course, something that you have been watching very closely. And so this news of the government reopening, obviously a lot of people taking notice. There's a lot of eyes on what's happening right now. So what are your final takeaways for us, Gerson?
I think it's a great thing. I think that both sides have come to the table, although some things are still in questions and they're battling some things out. I think this is a first step in a great direction. I think that the government shutdown has impacted a lot of families. We know how it impacted the SNAP program, so I'm definitely glad that the government shutdown has come to an end, at least temporarily, for those instances, as well as government workers. They were tremendously impacted, and they're going to be getting back to work. I think it's overall great for the community when both sides are cooperating in some way, shape, or form, because it helps us move forward a lot faster.
Gerson, let me ask you this before we let you go. Where can we find you just to read up more on what you've done? You got an impressive resume, sir. So, of course, more on you at Be Like Capital and just to follow along with you.
You can find me, of course, on my company website, www.belite, B-E-L-I-T-E, capital, CAPITAL.com. And you can find me on every handle under Gerson Gibbs. Thank you for
You're an
having
active
me.
guy online. Yeah, I'll tell you, you're not hard to find. So we appreciate you checking in with us. Gerson Gibbs, Be Capital, joining us today. Gerson, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great one.
All right, we're going to get you back out now to hopefully it works for us this time, and we'll be able to hear our Eli Jordan. He's hanging with Helping Mamas, a fantastic organization, and you're live in Norcross for us today. So, Eli, what's going on out there? Oh, not again. Oh, goodness, Gall. Okay, live TV for you right here. But here's, I think, what we can do right now. We'll give our meteorologist, Jonathan Stacy, just a moment to make it up here. As we take another live look at the airport, we're seeing some sunshine, some blue skies today. And if you've had a chance to step outside, then you have certainly noticed it feels so much warmer than what we've been experiencing a few of the days this week, which is a very nice change. But I do feel like I'm hearing more sniffles around, so I don't know if it can be attributed to these really big temperature swings that we've had. But let's find out if this will continue and what's happening as we get closer to the weekend. Meteorologist Jonathan Stacy is joining us now. I personally like the change.
It is a welcome change. Earlier today it was mentioned that it's World Kindness Day, and I said, okay, Mother Nature is finally being kind to us on this day after we experienced winter's wrath earlier in the week. Early run-in with winter was quite unprecedented. But I want to talk about something a little different today because the weather's calm, folks, and so I could say it's going to be bright, sunny, and warm. So let's take a look at this. So the foliage is changing fairly rapidly as well. And so oftentimes, I know here in North Georgia, we just look to the mountains because there's so much beauty to behold there. But if you haven't gotten a chance to go to the mountains and you really want to get in some really good sights, we're going to take a look at some places that are across the Piedmont that you may even want to check out this weekend, because I think this is the peak, the proverbial peak that we wait on each and every year. Things are starting to really change here in the metro area. If you wait another week and certainly another 2 weeks, I think the leaves will be past peak all across the area. So in terms of what the forecast looks like ahead, once again, we're keeping our focus on this weekend. So my clicker's not working here so quickly,
We're
but
falling
I
apart.
have,
Goodness gracious.
it's fine. This is the way we do things up here. So let's take a look at this information that I have pulled up, because I want to give you a couple places to go here. First up, Elise, that I was able to find this spot is over in Jones County. It's the Ocmulgee. You remember the river down there in South and Central Georgia, Ocmulgee Piedmont Scenic Byway. So it's in Jones County, which is about an hour and 10 minutes drive. It's like you're going to Macon, and it's very scenic down there. And that's a really great place to be able to see the leaves and embrace the foliage. Another place that I found was the historic Piedmont Scenic Byway, and it's actually in two counties. First, starting out in Hancock County, and then there's another portion over in Putnam County. So if you were to start out in Eaton, you would wander your way over into Hancock Hancock County from Putnam there. And it would take you about an hour and 12 minutes from downtown to Eaton to get to the start of the route. So yeah, and that's why I wanted to bring these up, because oftentimes we think about going to the mountains, and that's definitely a day trip. So if you go to Jones County, Putnam, Hancock counties, that could be a half-day trip, so you don't have to commit to it. But here's one even better, especially for those of you who are metro dwellers and you don't want to stray too far from the city. South Fulton Scenic Byway. That's my number 3. And it is down in South Fulton, as is aptly named, and it's about 29 miles that actually go in a loop. So you don't have to worry about, really turning or getting lost out in any particular reserve or anything like that. It's a great area to see some foliage, but also stay pretty close to home. In fact, it's about a 20 minutes drive from downtown Atlanta. So it's going to be really easy for you to be able to just kind of pop up there and drive around, say I got to see some fall colors at peak, and be on your way off to do your other thing. If you're like me, you want to take some pictures, something that you can post to say that you've embraced all things fall, especially since winter has already kind of had an early arrival. I don't think these leaves are going to hang around too long. I think Monday and Tuesday was a real shock to the tree system.
You know what? So you mentioned that, and I want to show you this, and if I can get my phone to where you guys can see it. I've got the most beautiful Japanese maple in my backyard. Y'all aren't going to be able to see this. Okay, maybe you can. Here, let me see. It's so pretty, but here's the problem: is I haven't posted it yet. Do you see how few leaves are left on this?
Exactly.
And it happened. It's the days that you mentioned. Monday and Tuesday did a number on my Japanese maple.
They shed very quickly.
Oh my gosh!
And that's the deal. If we can hang on to warmth for the better part of fall, okay, we have at least, although the foliage is changing colors, at least it sticks onto the trees.
Right.
Sometimes you can have crunchy trees. It's like, okay, how much longer are they going to last? Nonetheless, this weekend, a great weekend to go out and see the foliage. 70s by afternoon, 40s and 50s for the morning. Not a chance for rain until next Tuesday, and at that is 20%.
Okay. I love this. It's nice. I'm glad you gave us some spots that weren't way up north. It's great up there, but it's a little more accessible for many of us that can't make it up north.
Exactly. And you don't have to cross it off your list just yet. You can go ahead and say, I can get it in this year because the timing and the location probably pretty good for most folks.
All right, meteorologist Jonathan Stacy, as always, we appreciate you. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for sticking with us on this Thursday. So Georgia is rethinking justice, moving from punishment to education. ProCivica is really leading the change when it comes to that, using tech and behavioral science just to help people re-enter the workforce and cut down on those repeat offenses. So joining us this morning, we have co-founder and CEO Chip Morris joining us to talk a bit more about that. So Chip, thank you so much for being on with us. How are you?
I'm doing good, and thank you for having me.
Good. Happy to hear it. Let's dive into this. This is really interesting. Chip, let's start with the big picture here. What is the Goodwill Opportunity Accelerator, and how is ProCivica involved in this whole effort? What is everything?
Yeah, well, it starts with recidivism. That is a huge cost to society. Right now in the state of Georgia, every time we incarcerate somebody, it costs us about $23,000 a year to house them. So we want to be able to address that and reduce that financial cost as well as the social cost, the impact that it has on the community. So ProCivica has created a curriculum and a platform to help address that.
Very interesting here. I want to talk more about that. I mean, I think for many of us, that's a pretty shocking number, what you just said, $23,000 per person each year. So how then does investing in education and rehabilitation compare in terms of the long-term impacts that we see?
Absolutely. Well, when we spend $23,000 a year, but when they come out within 3 years, over half of those folks are back in. So starting there, we're saving society the cost, and we're returning people back to thrive in a community. So what we do with education, we go beyond punitive, which is important. They need to be able to understand that they've done something wrong. So that's where the incarceration comes in. But when they come back in the community, we need to go past what they did and try to teach them through education how to not do that again. So it's not just a practical approach, it's also a reflective approach. When we work with folks, we want them to reflect on what they did, the decisions they made, and how to change that moving forward.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It does. And this is something that you know really well, Chip, because you've been involved in behavioral health, justice reform for more than 3 decades. So how would you say things have changed here in Georgia when it comes to, how Georgia approaches rehabilitation today? I'm guessing it's not the same as it was 3 decades ago.
No, it's not. Now, I do think that we're looking at more results-driven programs. Every time we work with the court system or state agency, it's about the data. So are we using approaches that are proven and that are results-driven? So I do think that we're looking at the results more so now. I think mainly because of the cost that it takes. And when judges and courts are making decisions to use education, they want to make sure that it's effective. So that is different. That has changed.
Yeah, certainly so. So how would you say that AI and this data-driven, science and education, how would you say that that's helping this effort to hopefully get folks who are in our criminal justice system to not be repeat offenders?
Sure. Well, AI is a sort of, a new thing, and it's certainly helping as far as creates some of the curriculums, and it speeds things up, but we're still people-centered. But the technology we do lean on because we offer our courses online, which makes it accessible, which is huge. A lot of these folks, a lot of people are out there, working 1 or 2 jobs, so their schedules don't always fit with an in-person course. And transportation, there are a lot of other issues that can get in the way. So technology does allow us to present our material in a way that is convenient to the learner. So that's a big leap forward. Folks did have issues with doing things online versus in person, but we now see data shows that when folks can do it on their schedule, at the convenience of themselves and in their own home, they actually learn more. So technology is definitely advancing the effectiveness of our programs.
That makes sense. So you're talking a lot about, the program. So what are folks learning? I mean, what's being offered that they can take advantage of?
Sure. Well, we have classes that address drug and alcohol awareness, theft awareness, parenting classes. We're about to release in the new year a gang prevention program that we're going to be using statewide with the Department of Juvenile Justice. Domestic, I think I mentioned domestic violence. We also are going to be doing divorce parenting. We have firearm awareness, driving awareness, everything that people need when they come into a court system that can empower them to stay out of the court system.
Yeah, very, very important. So I guess, important to ask you this, how can folks find you if this is something that they have a need for, or Chip, or they know someone who does?
Absolutely. They can just go to procivica.com or they can email us at support@procivica.com.
Chip Morris joining us this morning, co-founder and CEO of ProCivica. Chip, thank you so much. We appreciate your expertise in this. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely.
All right, I want to get you to something really great that's happening in town today at Lenox Square. The Georgia Ovarian Cancer Alliance hosting Teal to Heal fashion show. So we have our Chris Rosenthal, who is live for us this morning with what we can expect a little bit later. And this is a big event every single year. Chris, good morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, Elise. You know, I got here just a short time ago, and they were setting up the runway. You can see behind me, it is all set and ready to go for this fashion show that'll be happening later today around 7 o'clock this evening. This is a Teal to Heal fashion show benefiting the Georgia Ovarian Cancer Alliance. You know, American Cancer Society estimates about 20,000 women across the country will be diagnosed with ovarian cancer in 2025 this year. So that's why events like this are so important. All the money, proceeds from the tickets going to the Georgia Ovarian Cancer Alliance. And I am joined by Lindsay Jones. She is with Lenox Square Mall, one of the partners putting on this event. And tell me a little bit about this event. Why, you know, how did this come together?
So this is our second year hosting. We're so excited to host this great event, Teal to Heal. 100% of the proceeds of all ticket sales go to benefit the Georgia Ovarian Cancer Alliance. So we're happy to just help support. Tonight you'll see 21 beautiful models come down the runway. They're getting a full makeover today, hair, makeup, new outfits. And all of our models are women that have been impacted by ovarian cancer. Whether they've survived it, whether they're currently undergoing treatment, or they have a loved one that has died or has been impacted by ovarian cancer. This year we're also highlighting the caretakers, because it's not just those women that are undergoing treatment, but the caretakers that are so important.
And a lot goes into this. You know, a little bit later we'll be showing they're getting hair and makeup. Talk to me a little bit about everything that goes into all this here.
Absolutely. So Elaine Sterling at the Elaine Sterling Institute, all of their students are making over our 21 models today. So they're getting hair, makeup, they're going to have new outfits from 7 different retailers that we're featuring today. True Food Kitchen is doing all of our food tonight. So it's kind of all things Lenox Square coming in to help out this really great cause.
And talk to me about the cause. I mean, why is this so important?
Ovarian cancer is such a kind of unknown cancer to a lot of people. So it's great to kind of bring light to a cancer that not as many people know about. Tonight you'll also hear about symptoms. So symptoms that you may not realize could be ovarian cancer, which a lot of people miss, you know, or misdiagnosed. There's a lot of we want to bring awareness to it too. So tonight's a night about awareness and raising money for a great cause.
And you know, speaking of raising money, you know, how could, you know, how much are the tickets? How could people? There are still tickets available. How can people get them? And how can people donate?
So tickets are still available, although we're close to selling out. So if you go to our website, lenoxsquare.com, you click through, could purchase the tickets. Tickets are $100 a piece. And even if you can't make it tonight, it's still a great way to make a donation, to make an impact. And then if you come through tonight, we have some really great prizes we're giving away as part of our raffle. So here's a way to give a little more and get some really cool prizes in return.
Awesome. Well, that's Lindsay Jones. She's with Lenox Square Mall, and yeah, as you can see, the runway is all set up. This will be busy with those models, those patients, survivors, and caregivers out here later, giving a lovely fashion show for a good cause.
Yeah, it really is a good cause, Chris. And I want to go through the details really quickly on this again. It's happening today, 6:30 p.m. out there at Lenox, and just a fantastic event. There's been a lot of involvement with Fox 5 in years past, so it's good to see that it's continuing this year. I'm sure it's going to be bigger than ever, benefiting the Georgia Ovarian Cancer Alliance. We're talking Teal to Heal. So, Chris, I think you're out there a little bit later as well as we get closer to the event. So we appreciate you giving us a look ahead. Thank you so much. Our time now is 11:30. We're back right after this. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for being with us on this Thursday here on Fox Local. So let's get back to the big news of the day, talking about the ending of the government shutdown, the longest in U.S. history, as we take a live look here at the U.S. Capitol. So here's what we know about it. The federal workers have been told that they do need to show up at work today. President Trump signed a funding bill Wednesday night, ending the nation's longest government shutdown. The final tally on that, 43 days that the government was shut down. So it left thousands of federal workers without pay. It stranded travelers out at the airport and sent long lines to food banks. And those were the stories that we continue to see throughout those 43 days. And it also deepened partisan rifts in Washington between Democrats and Republicans as President Trump canceled projects and attempted to dismiss federal workers in order to pressure Democrats into ending the government shutdown. So the president blamed Democrats for that standoff, urged voters against backing the party in coming elections. So let's take a deeper dive at this and just talk a little bit more about what we know. It was a near party line vote, so we're talking 222 to 209. The Senate had approved the measure earlier this week. Democrats pushed to extend an expiring tax credit that lowered the cost of health coverage for millions of Americans. So they're saying that we can expect those prices to skyrocket. So that was what they said their holdup was in getting behind reopening the government. They also rejected a short-term spending bill that was left out of the provision, but the Republicans argued the issue should be debated separately. So in line with that, I mean, one of the many places that we saw the huge impacts from the shutdown, of course, airports all around the country. There were flight cancellations, flight delays, air traffic controllers expected to work without pay, TSA workers expected to work without pay. So caused a really big mess for so many Americans around the country. There's a bit of good news, though. And that is that we're learning flight cuts will stay at 6%. That's according to the FAA. They had been scheduled to increase to 8% today and then to 10% by the weekend if the shutdown had continued. So again, those flights for now, those cuts will stay at 6%. Now, are we able to go now to Caroline? Okay, we're going to check in with Fox's Caroline Elliott. She's joining us live in New York at LaGuardia Airport. So it's kind of an interesting bag here, Caroline. Good morning to you, by the way, and thanks for being with us. It's like things will improve, but it's still a bit of a waiting game right now. Does that sound right?
Exactly, Elise. This could take some time for airports to recover, and the timing of all this really could not be worse. Elise, we know that Thanksgiving is right around the corner, and that's a time where airports are already a mess, and that's when you don't have a government shutdown, and that's when they are typically fully staffed. So when will all of this get a little bit better? Well, we're told that now that the government is reopened, those paychecks are starting to come back in, there is an expectation that most air traffic controllers will now show up for their shift, but it could take airports a few days or possibly even longer to recover.
Yeah, certainly so. And Caroline, it's the timing of this right now, right? That's so rough. It's like this would be bad anytime, but we're right around the holidays right now. So, I mean, I don't know. Should travelers be concerned about this or confident that things will be back to normal in time for Thanksgiving travel?
Yeah, Elise, I think right now it's cautious optimism. We've talked to some travelers, and they were happy, of course, that the government back open now, that travel could get a little bit better, but they're also just still a little cautious because, again, Thanksgiving is always a mess in airports to begin with, not to mention when everything else is going on. So there's some cautious optimism. I will tell you, though, overall, morale, I think, is a lot higher in this airport than it has been, specifically among TSA workers and air traffic controllers. I was actually in the bathroom talking with some TSA people, and they were actually saying, hallelujah, we're getting paid again today. So
well, there's that.
There's just some morale that's, been boosted. So they got to take the wins where they can get them. It's been a tough few weeks for these people.
Yeah, it really has been, Caroline. It has. So if we can back up just a little bit and you can give us a reminder, I mean, where did we see the majority of flight delays, cancellations? Was it kind of a regional thing? Did it seem to hit every airport no matter where it was located, or did we see some kind of a trend in there?
Yeah, at least really all over the country. Of course, Atlanta being one of the busiest airports in the world, the busiest airport in the world, we should say, obviously experienced a lot of cancellations, but it was really all over the map. Earlier this week, we were up to 11,000 cancellations a day. I believe that was on Sunday. So again, very, very concerning there. We checked a little bit ago and we were around 800 cancellations for today. And Elise, it's hard to believe, but that's actual progress compared to where we were earlier this week. So again, yeah, it is wild because on a normal day, that would be complete chaos, right? But bigger perspective, this is some progress that airports are making right now, and it's just going to take a little bit of time to get back into full swing.
Yeah, I want to mention, Caroline, checked here in Atlanta at Hartsfield-Jackson, there are 85 cancellations for today. I think that number, kind of like you mentioned, nationwide, that number here is down. So, you know, there's that, and at least things are getting back on the right track. But Caroline, thank you so much for joining us back here in Atlanta. We appreciate your insight, and fingers crossed things continue to improve, right?
Of course. I'm actually flying back to Atlanta tomorrow, so hopefully things are looking okay for my flight. Yeah.
Knocking on wood for you that you make it back safely and on time. Fox's Caroline Elliott. Caroline, thank you so much. It's good to see you again. Take care. All right, we want to get you to some important information as we get closer to the holidays, and that is one thing that's a part of it is stress, especially when we're talking about financial stress. There's parties to attend, there's gifts to give, and it's all very expensive and can certainly be stressful. So joining us to talk about staying financially fit, we have Dr. Brittany Green, Head of Community at Self, offering a bit of help for us today. So Dr. Green, thank you so much for being on with us. Good morning.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so let's get into this. I mean, what are you hearing from Self customers about holiday spending this year? What are folks saying?
So for this year, nearly half of Self customers are saying that they're more stressed about the holiday spending this year. And it's actually the second year in a row that we're seeing this trend. Unfortunately, people are having to make some tough trade-offs, such as skipping bills, selling personal items, or even taking like side jobs just to, you know, make the holidays happen. And what we're realizing is that it's not just financial, it's emotional as well. So, but there are ways that we can actually take back control.
Yeah, let's dive into that. I mean, how can we take back control? I think we're all ears. You know, it's a tough time of year, period. And then you add on everything that we've gone through the last, 43 days. And it's you know, can be a disaster for so many people. So offer us some help today.
Yeah, so 4 things that I would recommend is number 1, start by getting clear on where you stand. So looking at your income and expenses and recent trends over the last 3 months, right? Let's take it back for the last 3 months. That gives us a good realistic picture of what's been happening. The second thing is going to be set a total holiday budget. So what's your number that you're looking to allocate towards what matters the most and who matters the most? And especially this year, with everything that's been happening in the last 43 days, we want to be a little bit more strategic. So a way that we can do that is point number 3, starting early and spacing out those purchases to avoid financial panic. I know we're in November. We'll blink and we'll be in December.
Right.
But it's still an early amount of time for us to start purchasing and making gifts for our family and friends. And then lastly is most importantly, protecting your credit during this time. So if you can, avoid stored credit cards, monitor for fraud, and of course, keep your utilization under 30%.
You know, I'm so glad you mentioned that last one. I want to talk a little bit more about that. I mean, it's a big concern for so many all the time, but especially when you're thinking about, you know, checking all the things off your list that need to be checked off on top of paying the bills, right, that you always have to pay. So what are some ways that we can protect our credit during the holidays?
Yeah, stick to the basics. I think that's the most important thing. Industry standards say around 30% is where you want to keep your utilization. I say let's take it a step further. Let's get 10% utilization or below, meaning the time that you're using your credit cards on a monthly basis. When it's time, you know, consider making sure that it's under 30%. The second thing is avoiding store credit cards or buy now, pay later options. Those things are very attractive, especially right now.
That's tempting, huh?
That's been happening. Yes, but it can be, you know, tragic for your financial foundation if you have not, taken the proper precautions to factor in that buy now, pay later aspect into your finances. A third thing is making sure that you're making your payments on time, even if it's just the minimum, making sure that those are on time, because payment history is the biggest factor of your credit score. And then, of course, watch for scams and errors that may happen on your credit report. Now, if you notice that you've taken a hit to your credit, you can, of course, go to self.inc for more information and tools on how to build your credit if you are looking to get yourself back on track.
Okay, so let's switch gears quite a bit here. And for those that are watching that are on a tight budget or just really trying to rein in spending, what are some maybe meaningful or lower cost ways to celebrate without feeling like you're not getting to experience the holiday season?
Focus on experiences rather than expenses. I like to say presents versus presents.
I like that.
So a few ways. Yeah, I love that. I love that saying. So a few ways that this can be done is like Secret Santa, potlucks, DIY gifts, family activities are things that people can do to create joy without the financial strains of things. We can use platforms like TikTok or YouTube for gifts and activity ideas. I know from scrolling on my timeline, I'm seeing all type of games that you can play with wrapping paper, balloons, but it really gets the family having a good time of fun. And it allows you to kind of turn it into a family challenge without having all of the financial challenges that come with it.
You know what? I'm so glad you mentioned all that. And I feel like, Brittany, I've seen so many videos lately, and it's asking kids, what did you get for Christmas last year? And the kids don't remember. But what you tend to remember are those experiences, like what you just said, and those traditions and all of those things. Like, those are the things that really stick.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. I love that. Them having that experience, maybe traveling, different things that, will be a good fit on the budget without being too much on the finances.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that we know, but it always helps to hear it from someone else, right? To just kind of, stress the importance of that. But finally, let me ask you this. What do you think is the biggest takeaway for folks to remember about staying financially healthy during this time of year? One thing that you can leave us with, Brittany.
Yeah, keep focused on your why. Staying firm and committed to your goal will mean that sometimes you may have to say no. But if the no is behind a good why, you're able to, stay confident in the decisions that you're making, especially if there's a financial goal that you have for yourself. This is the biggest gift that you can even give to yourself this season. So keep focused on your why.
Let me ask you really quickly, too, and I know I just said that, but this really is the last one, okay? Tell me a little bit about Self and how we can find you, Brittany.
Absolutely. So you can, of course, find us on self.inc. Self is a 10-year-old credit building platform helping to make building credit more accessible to all of its users. And you can find us on, again, self.inc.
All right. We certainly appreciate the help this morning, staying financially fit and healthy during this holiday season. Dr. Brittany Green, head of community at Self. Thank you so much for checking in with us here in Atlanta. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, we're going to stay on the financial theme here. And if you haven't heard the big news, it really is big. That's because it's the end of an era. No more new pennies are being made. The U.S. Mint in Philadelphia pressed the very last 1-cent coin yesterday, and this marks an end to more than 2 centuries of production, which is pretty wild, right? President Trump ordered the phase out back in February, arguing the coin actually cost 4 times more to make than it's worth. Treasury says it expects to save about $56 million per year on materials. Now, pennies can still be used, so it's not like you need to throw them out now. Prices may eventually, though, need to be rounded up or down to account for the lack of a 1-cent coin. So the Mint says the last pennies ever pressed will be auctioned off at a later date. So there you have it, the phasing out of the penny, the end of an era. It's 11:46. We're back right after this. And welcome back, folks. Thanks for being with us today. All right, so the government shutdown has ended after 43 days, the longest in U.S. history. And one of the things that this allows for is that is SNAP payments to resume after so many families received reduced or delayed SNAP benefits here. That new legislation funds SNAP through the rest of the budget year. So again, that's really good news for millions of families around the country and, of course, here in Georgia as well. So the USDA is saying that right now most states could see those payments restored within 24 hours of reopening. And again, things reopened last night, though timing will vary by state. So we haven't heard from Georgia just yet on when we can expect SNAP recipients to get those full benefits here. We'll keep you posted on that. But again, this comes after 43 days of uncertainty for so many Americans. And really that extends way beyond, where they're going to get their next meal with their SNAP benefits. And it goes into other things that they need if they have children. So we're talking about diapers and baby supplies. And those are things that are very, very expensive. So this morning, our Eli Jordan is hanging with Helping Mamas in Norcross to learn a little bit more about what they do and who they're able to help. Oh, yikes. That didn't sound good, did it? Okay, well, we tried, but they do amazing things. So if you're able, then go to helpingmamas.org just to be able to give a little bit because they do a lot of great work in the community. But let's get to a few of our top education stories for you now. There's a lot happening when it comes to the search for superintendents around the state of Georgia. Let's start with this one in Gwinnett County. The search is really heating up. They're looking for the next leader at Gwinnett County Schools, and they've been looking for that superintendent since, I believe, January. And last night, the group behind the search gave an update on what's happening. So for months, they've been utilizing a specialized consulting business. It's called Alma Advisory Group to aid their effort and just to gather some more community input. Members say it's a change for how school leaders brought on the previous superintendent, Dr. Calvin Watts. The board actually ended up breaking his contract at the beginning of the year. He was hired in 2021, so it didn't last too long in that position. The district's chief of schools, Dr. Al Taylor, has been serving in the interim, and school board leaders say community input has been a really vital part of this process and that they plan to really lean into that this go around. So now in Fulton County, to update you on what's happening with the school system there, the school board's voted to extend Superintendent Mike Looney's contract by a year, so through November 11th of 2028. And in his recent annual report, he warned that the district might have to slash its budget by $95 million due to lower student enrollment, higher cost, and an increasing amount of property tax revenue going to the state. So we've run several stories in the last few weeks on there being schools up on the chopping block because of this budget deficit. So that's something that will continue to hear more about as decisions are made on if and when some schools within the Fulton County School District will be closing. And now to this in DeKalb County. My goodness, Saturday will mark Superintendent Dr. Devon Horton's last day with the school district. He's still being paid right now. That ends on Saturday. That's when his resignation takes effect following his federal indictment on 17 wire fraud and embezzlement charges. That involves his former school district in a suburb of Chicago. So this week, DeKalb Schools approved a forensic audit of Dr. Horton's spending to focus on district contracts and purchases. But again, the last day that Superintendent Dr. Devon Horton in DeKalb County will be paid is when his resignation takes effect on Saturday. It's 11:53. We're back right after this. So welcome back, everyone. Thanks for being with us here on Fox Local. A quick update on the reopening of the government, and some of the biggest impacts that we're seeing on this are happening at airports around the country. So let me get to the data here on what we're seeing despite this reopening last night. Actually taking a look at the Capitol. Here we go. Take a look at Atlanta's airport now. An updated emergency order was issued to airports, freezing flight reductions at 6% until further notice. So it's actually some good news. I mean, I know 6% seems like a lot, but it was set to go up to 8% today and then up to 10% this weekend. So all of this comes back on because of November 7th. Sean Duffy, U.S. Transportation Secretary, said that it would limit traffic at 40 of the nation's larger airports. Of course, Atlanta being one of those airports that we saw so many impacts of from the government shutdown, from TSA workers having to work without pay, air traffic controllers as well. The numbers are starting down. In fact, here at Atlanta's airport, looks like we're down to 85 cancellations for today, which is certainly an improvement. So we'll be sure to keep an eye on that. Thanks so much for joining us on this Thursday. We hope you have a great day, and we'll see you at noon. Take care.